Democratic strategist James Carville has some choice words for the next generation of Democratic Party leaders. The pundit took to News Nation to slam DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, also ripping into AOC and Bernie Sanders' fighting oligarchy tour. He's calling on progressives more concerned with, quote, pronoun politics to leave the Democratic Party. And he's arguing that all three are part of the problem. Let's watch.
Let me make a point about Bernie and AOC. But Bernie went for president twice. He's lost twice. AOC, in her kind, and this guy, David Hogg, they want to run against other Democrats.
Yeah.
They don't run against Republicans. Well, when you beat a Republican, come back and see me, and I will be impressed.
As you heard there, Carville took issue specifically with Hogg, who is a Parkland shooting survivor. Carville lambasted Hogg's recent decision to use millions of dollars to challenge incumbent Democrats. Let's take a look at that.
All this guy Hogg wants to do is they want to beat, like Democrats are not the problem right now. Why don't somebody sue David Hogg? He's an officer of the Democratic National Committee. He is the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he's running against other Democrats. But I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp.
And now ex-users are calling out Carville. One user saying maybe Sanders and Cortez are the new Democrat Party.
Political commentator Deborah Darkins writes, the mental gymnastics this guy does to justify still being a Democrat is astounding, or maybe just stupid.
That's a little harsh on James.
I think so too.
Our friend James.
Well, obviously a Democrat.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty clear.
Secret conservative James Carville.
Right, I don't think that's true. I mean, obviously he gets criticism from the left because he does essentially represent a more centrist strand in the Democratic Party. I think we both find Carville entertaining in the way that he puts things. I do get some of the irritation with what he argues, particularly on some of these points. Like, he has frequently made this argument about the pronoun usage, and in fact he made it when he came on and chatted with us here on Rising, which is, I think, a perfectly valid argument to make. I do think it's not really fair to cast Bernie Sanders in that light, because I would argue that Sanders has actually at times been pretty reticent about what he considers identity politics, and he thinks that it can be used to basically divide working people. The other thing, the other objection or caveat I would raise to what Carville is saying there is he says, you know, oh, Bernie Sanders ran twice and lost twice. Factually true, yes, but the first time around, Hillary Clinton, who would, I think, be much more aligned with Carville's way of thinking, had enormous institutional advantages, had the DNC with a thumb on the scales to help her, had enormous fundraising advantages, and won pretty unconvincingly in that primary, and then of course went on to lose the general election to Trump. So James's argument that you can extrapolate from Bernie Sanders' record that a kind of Clintonian centrism is better, I'm pretty skeptical of that.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that point, especially on the point about Hillary Clinton sort of crowding out Bernie from the primary, which I thought it was really sad how he sort of capitulated to that, and then following that, capitulating to Joe Biden, dropping out and endorsing him. But I think the problem is with Bernie Sanders deciding to sort of crown AOC as his heir apparent, because while she holds some of the same populist economic policies as Bernie Sanders, she has not divorced herself from the identity politics woke wing of the Democratic Party. And so I think until she does that, Bernie is actually probably putting his legacy a little bit at stake there by being someone who has made the point that the Democratic Party's focus on demographic groups has really undermined the economic populist message for the working class. AOC, I think there's a little bit of contradiction there in between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, no big surprise that I would be more pro-AOC than you are. I think that's a pretty predictable outcome. But I think that she is certainly, to be fair, more identified with that kind of identitarian politics. Now, she has, I think, tried to shift generally. I mean, she removed the pronouns from her own X profile for what that's worth. And I think she has sought recently it's not quite right to say more mainstream appeal, but a less hard left kind of dissident appeal, maintaining the economic populism, but seeking, even in some ways seeming to seek people who are disaffected from the political system at large, rather than purely talking to people who are kind of committed leftists. And while it's certainly true that she doesn't completely replicate Sanders' position, and I take your point on that, I think she is the most charismatic, effective messenger for a sort of Bernie-adjacent message.
I'm kind of curious, when you look at the Democratic Party at a whole, you have the Carville wing that thinks they need to abandon wokeness entirely. You have maybe the AOC group that is more charitable towards wokeness, but maybe is trying to shift away a little bit. But then you have people like Tim Walz who say actually the problem in the last election was that we weren't passionately defending those issues on the cultural side of politics enough. I don't see anything in the short term that suggests they're going to land on a particular one of those positions, which is going to continue this fracture in the party that has damaged a lot of their policymaking and messaging.
Yeah, they are definitely still trying to search for a way forward and search for a compelling message. The compelling message may just be opposition to Trump. I mean, that's the thing that obviously binds the Democratic Party together. And if he ends up overreaching on things like the tariffs issue, we'll discuss elsewhere on today's show, that could provide a window of opportunity for Democrats. But there are obviously divides within the Democratic coalition, and those divides have not been transcended or bound together into a coherent whole yet.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the sort of post-mortem from November has led to any overwhelming conclusion on behalf of the members of the party.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, up next on Rising, can a pop song violate kids' rights? We'll speak with Reason's Elizabeth Nolan Brown to find out.